they doubt the kid. I'm about to prove them all wrong again. I got a low tolerance, cause they don't even know what the problem is. It's me. You waiting on the boy to fail, then hold your breath and face your death. Cause you play a roulette with each step I progress, no less. Go ahead and place your bets, cause we know where we at, we know we top tier. Cause all the hate that you bring, we know it stops here. I'm taking off like a rocket here, ain't stopping here. It's strange how they cannot see the future, but see profit here. Wait up, we gon' always win. Hello, I can't take no loss. My team hold no L's, no. Aiming for the top, can't make it by myself.
Welcome back to Brett Breaks Things Monday show. We begin a new week. We begin a new week, the 20th day of the shutdown. 20th day. The Senate will vote for the 11th time today. 5:30 today, they're going to vote for the 11th time to pass the Republicans' clean CR, a resolution that now is becoming kind of moot because the Republicans' version takes us through November 8th. They're going to have to rewrite it. We're coming up to the point where they're going to have to rewrite it, which will apply more pressure because if they have to rewrite it, do a new date, right? Their side is going to have to consider anything they may or may not want to add, which with the growing pressure on the Republicans in the Senate and in the House, that their constituents are extremely worried about their premiums and their health care. That pressure is growing. And if they have to open the House back up to pass another Republican version to get a date farther in the future to extend funding, so that will bring Mike Johnson back, and that will bring everybody in the House back. And we've got the matter of Ms. Grijalva, who has yet to be sworn in. She's there. She's got an office, doesn't have a password, doesn't have an email, but she's there. Mike Johnson says, well, we can't swear her in because we're not in session. We're in pro forma, even though Mike himself has sworn in 2 Republican reps in pro forma. He still dances and lies around that. He's still getting grilled about that. I saw a couple interviews with him. People are really hitting him with that. And he dances and he stutters, and it's that stuttering, quick talking, lying Mike Johnson, not that cool, calm, collected Mike Johnson. It's pretty fun to see. So, yeah, Mike will have to come back. He'll have to deal with Grijalva being sworn in and then her subsequently being the 218th signature on Kana and Massey's discharge petition of the Epstein evidence. He doesn't want that. He can't have that. So, if they have to rewrite it, Mike will have to bring everybody back. And he will have all this pressure back squarely on his shoulders. Pressure that he eased off himself and sent to John Thune, the majority leader in the Senate. Your problem now. Well, John couldn't get it done. Guess what, Mike? You may have to rewrite it and pass it again in the House. And if you open it up and you pass the Republicans' version, you're going to have to vote on the Democrats' version as well. And like I said, there will be pressure. Bipartisan pressure to put language in there, not just to pay the furloughed workers who Trump is threatening not to pay, but to pay the military for a longer term. There are critical agencies that need to be funded, and healthcare. The Dems have stopped talking about clawing back some of the power that was afforded to Trump in the last resolution. That was one of the major talking points as this shutdown began. They were talking more about SNAP. They were talking more about federal foreign aid, billions in foreign aid, and they were talking about clawing back some of Trump's power over the purse. They've kind of dropped some of those other talking points. I'm not saying they're not still fighting for it behind closed doors. I'm saying they dropped those talking points, and they are focused solely on the ACA subsidies because that is the strategy, and that is the one topic that all Americans are concerned about, very easily digestible to the average American, this effect on you. No hoops to jump through. Don't have to really pay attention to politics. Don't have to watch Fox or CNN or MSNBC or Newsmax to understand that at stake right now is your ACA subsidies, your health care. So the Democrats have narrowed down their focus. They've narrowed it down. By the way, 1,400 employees more have been furloughed out of the NNSA, which is the National Nuclear Security Administration. They are the ones that oversee the administration of our nuclear sites, making sure they're safe and clean and working properly. There are still 375 that are going to be kept on for critical sites, the ones that are deemed the biggest threat should something happen. So 375 will stay on, but 1,400 have been furloughed. To be paid, maybe. We're still working on that. Trump and Russ Vought would like to not pay them. Let's be clear about that. And Comey has till today, he faces a deadline. James Comey has been indicted. Trial's getting ready to start. His lawyer, Fitzpatrick, one of his lawyers, are trying to get the case dismissed. One, grounds that it is a politicization out of the administration. This prosecution is vindictive. That's one, vindictive. And two, that Ms. Halligan unlawfully got the grand jury indictment because she should not be there, basically arguing that the law states that if you fire an acting U.S. attorney, which when they fired Siebert, they implanted for just a very small period of time Mary McCleary, and then fired Mary McCleary as interim and put in Miss Halligan waiting for her confirmation by the Senate. Well, the law can be interpreted and has been interpreted as you can't have the AG appoint another interim back to back. It's got to be the judges who appoint that next interim. That's what the law says. So that's the other grounds that they're trying to get it dismissed on. And that is, we'll see how that goes. And how that goes, it will be very indicative as to how the Letitia James case goes, because her lawyers are also trying to get her case thrown out on both of those grounds. They're using the exact same playbook. So what the judge decides here will be very influential to the Letitia James case. At best, it'll get thrown out and they can run the exact same playbook and get the same success. At worst, it doesn't get thrown out and possibly James's lawyers get some insight into what went wrong the first time. We'll see how that plays out. Now let's get to the heroes of the day. Let's get to the big story of the day. Shall we?
Look at this. Millions of people across the country marching as we speak against the policies of President Trump. This is Boston.
Saturday today.
To those of you listening,
back here at home,
these are shots of some of our largest cities across this country with literally millions of people attending the No Kings rally. The whole country, every city, every major city, southern cities, Midwest cities. Washington, we talked about that. Amazing, amazing. You get the picture. Just an amazing amount of people showed up. Just an awesome success. I'm more proud this time than I was last time in July. Just simply because there was more rallies and more people and such a laser focus on the issue of Trump looking for any reason to be able to invoke the Insurrection Act.
4 minutes.
Okay? There was so much focus on it. They wanted it so bad. This administration, Republican governors, Republican AGs wanted violence so bad. They did everything they could to put protesters in direct access with violating the law. The governor of Texas, Abbott, called up the National Guard. Everybody was on high alert. Other states as well. As much federal presence there as possible. Federal presence. That was the key. I'm so proud. Everybody, man, the No Kings people, all of those groups that kind of made up this event, especially Indivisible, they did such a great job preparing these crowds. And it was a diverse crowd. I mean, I don't have to lawyers, military personnel, fired federal employees, children, grandmothers. The signs were clever. They were hilarious. There was a million signs. You know, the Washington, D.C. rally went off without a hitch. They didn't even want to do it there last time because of the implications. This time, Trump is even more dug in. That 30 days, by the way, came and went. Weren't all those troops supposed to be out of D.C. in 30 days? Isn't that what the law said? That has come and gone. Federal troops in the area, hyper-focus on what happens in D.C., no problems. No problems. Just unbelievable. There was an event in Chicago that took 22 city blocks. 22 city blocks. New York said about 100,000 people per borough took place in this thing. Unbelievable. About 2,700 events in all 50 states. I'm going to play a few more videos. I want to get to these. Look at that. No Kings. A huge group of people saying no Kings in San Francisco. I believe that's San Francisco. Is that of San Fran? Where is that? It was. Yeah, San Fran. And I have some video given to me personally. As I told you, my family, Rod, Aunt Sandy, they made their way out there. I spoke to them before they hit the crowd in Syracuse. DeWitt, I believe, was where they were stationed. They were already blown away as they were driving in how many people were on the streets. It was crazy. Crazy. So many people in Syracuse, towns that don't get talked about. And Rod and Aunt Sandy, they went out there. He gave me some videos of Syracuse. They were doing it big. Awesome. Look at Rod. Look at that camera work out of Rod. Little Francis Ford Coppola over there. It was very smooth. A very smooth transition, Rod. Nice pan, my friend. Nice pan. I got some pictures too. Let's see here. I got some pictures. So that is downtown there. Here's some of the signs. There's my Aunt Sandy on the right there. No kings. We have a constitution, not a king. And here's the man of the hour. There's Rod. No kings wanted. And you know what was on the back of that sign? BrettBreaksThings.com, baby. Free pub out of Roderick. Very clutch, my friend. My man knows how to network and get it done. Might have a huge influx of upstate New York watchers and listeners in the near future. Rod, man, that's yeoman's work, my friend. Very nicely done, Rod. Thank you, Aunt Sandy. Thank you, Rod. Just so proud of both of you. So proud of everybody. 7 million people. 7 million people nationwide doing the most American thing possible. Peacefully protesting our current administration. They know we are a better place than this. There is an America that these people remember that is becoming a thing of the past, that is directly under attack. The idea of Americanism and patriotism and democracy, they're being spun and used as a cudgel, completely corrupted. And 7 million Americans came out to say no more, not a step further. So proud.
It's time for a quick break, then we break some more. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. Now back to Brett Breaks Things, smashing spin, silencing the noise, and keeping it all facts. No fluff.
I can't let it go, Scotty. I can't let it go. I can't let it go. There's too much. There's the stuff that you know, and then we get into some of the other stuff. And I like you to hear from some of the people who organized it and supported it, and some of the people who are demonizing it. And there's a couple other little stories that go along with this that I kind of want to get to. Now, by the way, this was international. Other countries took place. One in particular, there was a huge rally at the U.S. consulate in Dublin. There was a huge rally. It was international. Don't think what happens here doesn't matter globally. And do not go looking for the international community's opinion of Americans right now. Okay? Especially if you're sensitive. They simply cannot believe that we would choose this for ourselves twice. Let's just leave it there. So, Ezra Levin, he is the co-founder of Indivisible. I talked about Indivisible. They were a major part of what happened. And he particularly, one of his contributions was the training of the crowd, specifically training in de-escalation. And he said tens of thousands of people took part in his de-escalation training courses. Amazing. There's no way that didn't play a part, at least a small part, in the peaceful nature of what happened. I mean, just a staggeringly low amount of opportunities for this administration to seize upon. Just an amazing job for 7 million of us to peacefully come out with the exact same message is just so amazing. It's such a testament. Like, that in and of itself is a testament to how serious we are about this. Like, we understood the assignment. We understood the nature of what we're protesting is wrapped up in what would happen if any of this gets violent. Right? They speak to the exact message there, the exact issue there. What we're protesting is exactly what would happen if we decide to get violent. It's that type of reaction that we're protesting in and of itself. And to know the assignment and to stay on task and do this peacefully with this many people involved is just so amazing. It's just so amazing. And like I said, Abbott, Youngkin, and others mobilized their National Guard, were in a state of alert, mobilized federal forces in their states to be where the most protesters are, just waiting for something to kick off. I'm sorry, Greg. I'm sorry. I know you wanted the opportunity to have the first body count in Trump's name with Antifa labeled on it. I know you wanted that very badly for yourself. You and DeSantis down here are in this existential race to be the most Trumpian governors possible. And you are constantly trying to outdo each other with the philosophy with which you govern your states. And I know you wanted to be the first, Greg. I know he's a big fan of the show. I'm speaking right to Greg because I know he's a big fan of the show. I'm sorry, Greg. You didn't get your opportunity. Okay? You didn't get your opportunity. And the fact that Washington went down without a hitch, that is just so amazing. So amazing what happened in D.C. The amount of people that came out in D.C. right in the face of his federalization of the national troops in that area. It's just amazing. It's just amazing. Whoop. What do we... Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's just amazing. And Mehdi Hassan, who... if you want to listen to one of the most intelligent, insightful, articulate, and just razor sharp, commentary on the state, our political state right now, the Democratic Party, the Republicans, Trumpism, Mehdi Hassan is where you want to go. He might be the one place, if I could only send you to one person to listen to, their perspective on what's happening today, it might be Mehdi Hassan. The dude is amazing. And he spoke in Washington. A lot of people did. Bernie did. A bunch of other people did. Mehdi Hassan spoke. I wanted you to hear this.
The great irony is, of course, that Donald Trump is the son of an immigrant, the grandson of an immigrant, and married to an immigrant. In fact, 2 of his 3 wives were immigrants, proving yet again that immigrants will do the jobs that even Americans are not willing to do.
Did I say hilarious when I was extolling his virtues? That's pretty funny. I love hearing from Chris Murphy. I say that at least once a week. I love hearing from Chris Murphy. Love hearing from this guy out of Connecticut. And he was there. He spoke. He claimed Trump is enacting a detailed step-by-step plan to destroy all of the things that protect our democracy. And he pointed to what he said were the president's actions to destroy free speech and fair elections. He said, but the truth is also this. He is not won. The people still rule this country. Love that action. Can't get enough. Can't get enough. Of course, No Kings had its detractors. You know that. You know it had its critics out of the, places you expect to hear from them, which is the right, of course. John Barrasso, Republican out of Wyoming, said the far-left activist groups are pressuring Democrats to keep the government closed until their radical, anti-American No Kings rally is over. Senator Chuck Schumer is now a puppet of the radical, extreme, dangerous, scary wing of his party. Oh, we're the dangerous and scary ones. We're not the ones blowing people up off the coast of Venezuela and Colombia. All right, we're not. We're the dangerous and scary ones? Okay. I feel like that's debatable. Trump had a lot to say. Oh, Trump had a lot to say.
Over the weekend, the No Kings protests.
I think it's a joke. I looked at the people. They're not representative of this country. And I looked at all the brand new signs paid for, I guess it was paid for by Soros and other radical left lunatics. It looks like it was. We're checking it out. The demonstrations were very small, very ineffective, and the people were whacked out. When you look at those people, those are not representative of the people of our country.
Mr. President, besides San Francisco...
And by the way, I'm not a king. I'm not a king. I work my ass off to make our country great. That's all it is. I'm not a king at all.
Rod, who helped raise me, upstanding citizen, I could get into it, military veteran, and American who decided to get his ass down to DeWitt for 2 hours plus and peacefully protest, he's not representative of America? What? Rod's radicalized? Really? Not authentic? Yeah, he's paid. Just pathetic. Pathetic. He went on. He said before the event that he thought very few people would attend. And even Mike Johnson himself said people who don't want to stand and defend the foundations of truth, the foundational truths of this republic will be on full display. People who don't want to stand and defend the foundational truths of this republic will be on full display. It is exactly those people who were on full display, Mike Johnson. The people who were with Rod and in those cities across America are people who stood to defend the foundational truths. Justice, liberty, freedom. The freedom to not get lied to 30,000 plus times by your president. The freedoms of not having our National Guard show up on the street corner so you got to throw a Subway sandwich at them to defend yourself. You know, America. That's exactly what these 7 million people did, Mike. They stood to defend the foundational truths of this country. It's exactly what they did. And Ezra Levin, the co-founder of Indivisible, he said something. He said, demonization of the rallies only served to boost interest. I did not pay $1 for this free publicity. It is incredible. They fear mass peaceful protest, and that's true of any authoritarian regime. Love it. Love it, Mr. Levin. Love it. Love that action. That's exactly right. It's exactly right. But it's important to hear what he's saying there, talking about who's funding, focusing on the funders of these organizations. This is not a new thing, okay? And there was a really interesting editorial out of the Washington Post, and I thank Scott for bringing it to me. It was really interesting, and it just put in perspective, it took a step back and put in perspective the possible folly of completely delegitimizing a movement while focusing on who's responsible for it. Because we as Democrats, we kind of did the same thing. You know, around the 2008, 2009, 2010 era, Democrats, congressional Democrats, the Obama administration, they focused on the Koch brothers and the billions of right-wing money that was being funded into right-wing causes. Media, TV, social media. And they kind of didn't focus on the truth of the matter, which was the Tea Party movement. It involved a lot of Americans who genuinely were not approving of the direction Obama was taking the country. Now, I know myself and a lot of people in this audience loved the direction that Obama took during his presidency, loved it. But by focusing on the Koch brothers and focusing on the dark right-wing money, this article suggests, and it's by the editorial board, not any one writer that wanted to be identified. It said they really took a misstep by not focusing on what was upsetting a huge swath of American voters. And it pointed to it coming back to biting the Democrats in the 2010 midterms, where they kind of got thumped a little bit. And it led credence to the fact that although there was definitely dark money coming in, and the Koch brothers certainly did their best, Heritage Foundation, others like that, that there was an actual large amount of voters that were unhappy with the president's policies. And they're saying that's exactly what's going to happen here.
And this movement's bigger.
And this one involves a lot more people. This article suggesting, this editorial is suggesting, look, although Obama did make that mistake, and I even told you about the IRS weaponization, right? And Obama did, he added more hurdles, tighter restrictions to right-wing organizations, tax exempt organizations, especially ones with any type of Tea Party or Patriot in their name or their affiliation. They really went that specific, Obama's IRS did. Now, again, no charges were filed on any of those IRS officials, but there was an investigation. And here we go again. Look at history repeating itself. Now we've got a really much more weaponized and openly brazen about their weaponization of the IRS, saying, George Soros, you're directly in our crosshairs. So not only are they making the mistake of weaponizing the IRS to go after the funding of the Antifa terrorists, but they are delegitimizing and ignoring a very real and humongous movement of American voters who are upset with your policies. You're focusing on Soros, and you're ignoring 7 million people at the No Kings rally.
We'll be back to break it all down. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. You're back with Brett Breaks Things, where the truth hits harder than the headlines.
Okay, so why was it so important? Why was it so important that it was peaceful? So much more important this time than last time. Because he is absolutely looking for any reason to invoke the Insurrection Act. And I'm going to get into it a little bit. There's a story out of Texas. They are going ahead and they are charging 2 people with terrorism charges, domestic terrorism. Back in July, there was a protest at an ICE facility in Texas, and there was an altercation. Okay, there was a large crowd. Federal forces were called out. A man drew a gun. There was a shootout between a person in the crowd and the officer. The officer was struck, went to the hospital, released. That's great. Great that the officer was released, not killed. Amazing. There was an investigation. Several people were arrested at the scene. Then more people were arrested after the fact in a several home raid after some information gathering investigation, and all in all 17 people were arrested, and many of them they got various charges in relation to this shooting. I am in support of every bit of that right there. That portion of this, I have no problem with that. An officer was shot and you can tie 17 people to it. Half of them were arrested on the spot. Half of them were arrested after your investigation, and you charged them. No problem with that. Here's the problem. 2 people who were arrested after the fact have been charged as terrorists, not just terrorists, for the first time in our country's history. A month after Don declared Antifa a terrorist organization, these 2 have been charged as Antifa terrorists. Antifa terrorists. Now, this story, I promise you, this story was supposed to be used in conjunction with whatever violence Greg Abbott was anticipating during the No Kings rally in his state. They were going to join these 2 in organizing a terrorist activity as Antifa terrorists to anybody who tried to attack federal officers on No Kings Day as Antifa co-collaborators in some way. Tie them together. Antifa terrorists attacked us on No Kings, and we've got these Antifa terrorist organizers that we're charging in Texas. It would have all been nice and tight, but you amazing protesters in Texas didn't give Abbott the chance. But yet, they're still going ahead. And we'll keep an eye on that case. The evidence they're pointing to, by the way, is one, these people communicated with people who would be at that protest through a direct messaging app that automatically erased their messages, which is kind of common. Two, they talked specifically about bringing guns to the event, which is absolutely legal under Texas law. And three, they specifically talked about, we'll use our rifles to make ICE back away, which is a defensive posture. In the evidence that they are presenting in the indictment, inherently points directly towards these defendants' innocence. It's crazy. It's crazy. So we'll keep an eye on that. But just know that this is exactly why. This is exactly why it had to be so peaceful. And why we're doing this. And by the way, one of the reasons we're doing this, you did this, was because of the federalization of the troops. That's a big reason. Trump's private army and his plenary authority over the military. Remember that? Don't ever forget that. I'm not going to let you forget that. Trump's total and unitary control over the military in Stephen Miller's eyes. Let the cat out of the bag. That's one of the reasons people were out protesting. Well, a judge is going to have to rule on whether Trump can send troops to San Francisco. California lost this fight last time, and now Trump is sending more troops into California, this time San Francisco. And I'm telling you, he is gearing up. He is gearing up to use this Insurrection Act. He's gearing up. He wants it so bad.
Don't forget, and I haven't used it, but don't forget, I can use the Insurrection Act. 50% of the presidents almost have used that. And that's unquestioned power. I choose not to. I'd rather do this. But I'm met constantly by fake politicians, politicians that think that, it's not like a part of the radical left movement to have safety. These cities have to be safe.
There it is. So what he's doing is he's saying these blue, except for Memphis cities, are not safe. Los Angeles, Memphis, Chicago, Washington, Portland, right? He's saying they're not safe, and he's trying to put a federal presence there so something can happen. He's daring anybody in these cities to impede federal business, to violate the law in terms of, any type of vandalism or destruction of federal property, or stopping the federal troops there from, keeping the area safe in any way. Once you impede their federal duty, their mission, or destroy any federal property, all bets are off. So if he puts more troops in more places that don't approve of his policies and his actions, that's the greater the chance, it's exponential the chance that something kicks off. Okay? And so he's doing it to San Francisco. And since he won this fight in California last time, that's why he's picking on them. Sending them to San Francisco. And they don't want him. Here's the truth. All right? He's using this lawless motif in every single instance. Chicago's a war zone. Portland's on fire. San Francisco now. Right? Lawless. The truth of the matter? San Francisco reported across all categories a drop in crime. Across all categories this year, drop in crime. And that follows last year's historic drop in crime. They've never in the history of their city have seen a percentage drop in crime than they did between 2024 and 2023 and 2024. And then again in 2025, it got lower. And yet he is sending the National Guard to San Francisco, saying it is lawless. The hypocrisy is so obvious. The lies, the propaganda, the spin, the abuse of power is so clear. It's so clear. Now, in San Francisco, Mayor Daniel Lurie spoke about this. Since January, I have said that public safety is my number one priority. Over the last 9 months, we have backed that up. Rebuilding the ranks of our public safety agencies, strengthening coordination across departments, and strategically deploying technology. It's working. The district attorney of San Francisco, Brooke Jennings, said, city leaders have the issue under control and criticized the idea of federal troops as resources being imposed on our communities. And don't forget, by the way, I want you to know, if you didn't already, on Friday after the show, Trump clawed back $11 billion more in infrastructure contracts to where? Baltimore, New York, and San Francisco. Tell me more about ending weaponization, Pam. What was that line, Ed Martin, about weaponization? Mr. Weaponization Czar? Just do it and let the courts figure it out. Okay. Well, that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. And so, the Posse Comitatus Act, that is what we are currently leaning on. That is what we are currently leaning on. You know, there's two guys, Bob Bauer and Jack Goldsmith. They wrote a piece in the New York Times that talked about, you know, the dangers of Trump being able to invoke the Insurrection Act, what it affords him. It was a really interesting article in the New York Times. And these two guys, they wrote a book that I really, really want to read. I'm going to go find it. I'm going to read it. It's called After Trump, Reconstructing the Presidency. And, you know, not just the content of the book can I not wait to jump into, but it's just the realization that there will be life after Trump. Just the very notion that A, more intelligent people than myself see a future after Trump, and B, there is a plan to rebuild, reconstruct our democracy after he's gone. Just those two notions alone give me a lot of hope. And I appreciate you guys for writing this book. I can't wait to track it down. Just the notion that these two gentlemen can write a whole book on the notion, you know, on the idea that not only will this end someday, but we have a plan to fix it. Or there should be a plan, or could be a plan to fix it. Just that notion really, it really, it does my heart good. Just to know that somebody so intelligent could write a whole book about that subject. It really does make me feel better. Now, Title 10 is what's allowing him right now to move federal troops around. He also signed a executive order that specifies the National Guard's use to protect federal facilities and functions. The wording there is very, very important. This article is really amazing. It's really amazing. I suggest you track it down. It really lays out what's at Trump's fingertips should he be able to invoke it, and the lack of efficacy from the courts to stop him should that happen. Should that happen. He's out here saying, oh, at least a half of the presidents have used the Insurrection Act. It's actually a fourth, and nobody's ever done it to prevent crime that's not happening.
Breaking politics, breaking narratives, breaking news. But first, we need a coffee break. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things, pushing back, speaking up, and holding the line.
All right, I'm going to fulfill a promise I made you Friday. I told you that John Bolton was indicted, and you know I'm absolutely obsessed with these trumped-up FHFA cases and the Comey lying to the Senate case and Lisa Cook. And I can't get enough of this because, I mean, this is the weaponization that might not get the headlines every day and absolutely should. This is the dangerous stuff right here, you know. And it's funny because, you know, in that article, and I just want to say this. In that article by the two gentlemen that wrote that book, there was a couple parts of the Insurrection Act that they highlighted. And although I'm going to let you go and track this down at the New York Times yourself, it's an amazing article. Go track it down. Seriously, sink your teeth into. They talked about the broad, vaguely worded triggers to the law, okay? And they talked about the widest conceivable discretion when using the Insurrection Act, okay? So they warned about the dangers of the vague wording when it comes to justifying using it and the broad discretion when actually wielding it. And one of the things it said, it authorizes the president to order the armed forces to take such measures as he considers necessary to suppress any domestic violence or unlawful combination if the violence or combination opposes or obstructs the execution of the laws of the United States or impedes the course of justice under those laws. So that one right there tells me, as it talks about obstructs the execution of the laws of the United States. So all of you ICE protesters, you will simply be cleared off the streets and shoved into buses and vans as you are impeding the execution of the laws of this country. That's one thing. Protesting, demonstrations of that nature or any nature that may impede in any way the functionality of any federal function or, proceeding, whatever it may be, you're just going to get picked up. You're going to get picked up by people that are not marked in vehicles that are not marked, and you will be gone. There will be no due process. And this is the other one. As I talk about the John Bolton indictment, as I bring up Comey, and I bring up Cook, and I bring up James, this was another one that really stuck out to me. And I want you to stay with me. One provision says the president can use the armed forces as he considers necessary to enforce federal law against obstructions, combinations, or assemblages that make laws impractical to enforce. If he decides that the law is being impractical right now by having two people he considers criminals at the upper echelons of our law, like a Letitia James, well, then we can throw this indictment business out the window and just remove that obstruction. If they decided that Comey is still in obstruction of the proper law in this country, or Jack Smith was in obstruction of the proper law, once this is invoked, could he just remove those obstructions to the law and the proper course of the execution of the law? What if he decides having a criminal, Lisa Cook, on the Fed board is an obstruction to the execution of the Fed's work? Well, then we don't have time for a trial. We don't have time for this. We have to remove this obstruction. There's an insurrection. Just saying. Among other big problems with the Insurrection Act, that could be one. Another thing they detailed, by the way, is if Trump decides there is an obstruction to our elections, if there's fraud in any way, or an impediment to a free and fair election, or what he deems as a free and fair election, we could very possibly have federal troops at every single polling location, gun in hand. We dare you to obstruct. We dare you to impede. Just a few things to think about. Go check out that article. Go check it out. Okay, but Bolton has been indicted. Bolton's been indicted. 18 counts. 18 counts of mishandling classified information. All right, so what's really in question here is this 1,000-page diary that he kept. Okay, he kept a diary. And he shared that diary with his family. And there's more. But in terms of sharing the diary, he kept it, he shared it through message services, messaging apps, email. They're thinking AOL. Big surprise. John Bolton's still using AOL in 2018. I mean, shocked. But they're saying that he kept this diary and shared it through his email accounts and other messaging services with his family. And they're saying inside this diary is classified information that he was sharing. Okay? They're saying, among other things, they're saying that he knew what he was sharing was classified. He knew He shouldn't have been sharing them. And here's the thing. When I mentioned the Bolton indictment last week, I said this one's kind of got legs. Remember, I tossed that in there? Well, it kind of does. There's language in some of these messages that point to, yeah, he did know exactly what he was doing. Language like, yada, 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 the intel briefer said. So divulging information, the intel briefer said. Or divulging information while in the situation room, I learned yada, yada, yada. Just acknowledging that he got it from an intel briefer or got it while sitting in the situation room not only points directly to the fact that he knows it's classified and he knows he shouldn't be. So, and what's really interesting is that not only did it seem like Bolton knew exactly the sensitive nature of what he was sharing in these diary notes, he got hacked by the Iranian government. And they knew. They took a look at his emails and they're like, whoa. And they started taunting him. They sent him messages after they hacked him. Oh, yeah. On one message in July, they said, I do not think you would be interested in the FBI being aware of the leaked content of your diary. And then they added pages of leaked classified information that they had stolen from John Bolton's AOL account. And they also said, this hacker went on to say, this could be the biggest scandal since Hillary's emails were leaked, but this time on the GOP side. Contact me before it's too late. And these prosecutors are saying, yeah, and he didn't even tell us that, by the way. He didn't tell us the part about the hack. Now, Bolton said I was hacked. He said, hey, he immediately went to the CIA. He said, hey, I was hacked. I was hacked. But he did not tell them that the hacker had been taunting him and showing him pictures of classified information that he had been sending. He left that detail out, apparently. So when I talk about this one has a little bit of legs, it does. It had even more legs than that, unfortunately. You see, in 2019, Bolton started writing this book. Right? I don't know. Maybe you know about Bolton's book, his memoir about his time in the Trump administration. It was called The Room Where It Happened. That was the book. And in this book, he eviscerates Trump's foreign policies, his records, exposes him, calling him stunningly uninformed. Not complimentary. You wonder why this is happening to Bolton? Look no further than that right there. And so Trump's team sued John Bolton, trying to stop the release of this book. Well, that went on till 2021, and they could not stop it. But one thing they did get in the deal, in the litigation involved in this lawsuit, they did get a concession of, we get back any diary submissions to take a look at ourselves. Everything you ever submitted in your diary, we want to look at. Well, fast forward to John's house getting raided. Yeah, it appears there was a bunch of pages of his diary in his house they found during that raid that they had not turned over as part of this litigation over the lawsuit.
4 minutes.
Okay. So it's not great. This one's not great for John Bolton. And I'm not going to sit here and necessarily cry for John Bolton. I'm going to file him neatly into the overarching narrative of Trump is prosecuting his political adversaries. Now, if Trump prosecutes 10 political adversaries vindictively, what are the odds that one of them has any type of legs, any type of veracity? What if he does 20? What if he does 100? At some point, you're going to get to a threshold where you're going to say, yeah, reasonably, they're going to find something on somebody. Well, it looks like we didn't have to get to 20 or 30 or 100. It looks like we had to get to 3. 3 before they may have actually found something. The Comey indictment is bullcrap. The James indictment is bullcrap. The Bolton indictment, although vindictive and directed by the president to the DOJ, which is against the law, may have some legs. I don't know what to tell you. Keep an eye on that one. Keep an eye on that one. Oh, and by the way, the Letitia James indictment, bullcrap, right? We talked about it. Came out of the Eastern District of Virginia. It's a Halligan speciality, right? It's a Halligan deluxe. Except she had to do this one herself because several top prosecutors in the Eastern District of Virginia declined to take this case. Multiple people have told them there's no there. Mary McCleary told Halligan herself, there's nothing there. I won't take this case, and I won't allow my aides to take this case, and she was fired. Well, it turns out she's not the only top prosecutor in the office that would not take this case. Elizabeth Yusi, she's a federal prosecutor in the Eastern District. She has been fired. She told Halligan point blank, there is not enough here to indict Letitia James. And her deputy, Kristen G. Bird, she was just sideswiped, fired as well. They're not even sure why she was fired. They don't even know the extent to which she had any, input on whether they'd take the case or not. She's just gone too. So this Elizabeth Yusi, gone. Kristen J. Bird, gone. Mary McCleary, gone. Eric Siebert, gone. You won't do the president's bidding blindly at the expense of being able to do law going forward? What, you're afraid you're going to get disbarred? You have a reputation to uphold? You can get gone. There's no place for you in this administration. Integrity, professionalism, years of tradition being upheld. There's no place for you in this administration. Lying as easily as you breathe, spinning, propagandizing, immune to hypocrisy, immune to the irony. There's a spot for you. And the more you want to engage in all of that, the higher you climb. Bondi, Hegseth, Patel, Noem. It's that simple. Integrity has absolutely no place in the Trump administration or in Trump's new look America.
They'll try to repair the narrative, but Brett Breaks Things will be back tomorrow to break it all down.